Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmond, Kizito. Spectrum, tonight we will be reviewing the week. Some of the issues we'll be looking at. The Uganda People's Defense Forces marks 32 years of existence. The military coup in Uganda, can this same army, 32 years old, can it stage a coup? President Mushabe marked the day together with the army in Koboko, that's in the West Nile. He spoke at length about different things, defending his son's position in the army, saying he's qualified to be where he is and that he is an inspiration to many young people, including professionals. We'll talk about the oil debate in Uganda. A new report says all is well is the case. Our guest tonight, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Uganda representative at the East African Parliament. You're most welcome, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners. Habari za jioni.
Joined by Dr. David Mushabe from the Mushabe, Munungu and Company Advocates. You're most welcome, Dr. Mushabe.
Good evening, listeners and viewers, and thank you, Edmond.
We're also joined by Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy Secretary General of the Democratic Party. You're most welcome, Mr. Vincent Mayanja.
Thank you, Edmond. Good evening, viewers. I have a bad voice, so they will...
There's a bottle of water in front of you. Well, Vincent, let's start with you. What kind of army do we have today?
Well, it depends to which side of the coin you're looking at. But as a matter of fact, there is a difference between the army today and the army in the past. Of course, everybody agrees that there is an obvious discipline within the military forces, but at the same time, we are having a military this time that is politicized than it has ever been before. So that's how I look at the military today.
So it's a good thing to have a politicized army.
No, I don't think so. The military should be, or the army should be a profession where people go to serve the country and they live, not to serve any partisan views. But currently, you don't really draw a line between the Uganda People's Defense Forces and the ruling party. You don't really draw a line. And when you see the military voting parliament, if any military officer, for example, voted against what the ruling party wants, I think it will be a crisis, and you'd see how the powers that be will react. So therefore, I still feel that the military today is not that partial. It must be like a professional institution where people go to serve. But if it is really an extension of the politics, it is not very, very healthy for the country.
You've spoken about the now. Can you draw a line for us about its evolution from a former rebel force?
Well, they are just fighting they are just fighting to shed off that.
Let's try to look. You are a journalist for a long time. Try to walk with us. 27 years from January 26th, 25th, 1986, when they took power and announced the following day. Walk through the times for us. Mobilization.
Of course, I saw all that. I saw people were trying to make themselves look like an army, but of course they were not. They were a ragtag force coming out of the bush, and when they came here, they have tried really to professionalize. They are trying to send some on courses. I've seen very many people whom I saw when they came out of the bush, like for example, Kanobogere. He was really a fighter, just a bush fighter. But now when you meet Kanobogere, I think he's a professional soldier. Well, if you look at other people, there's a few young guys who have joined the army and they have come through the ranks. Some have been promoted, others are not promoted. Well, but of course that is the journey they have really taken.
Dr. David Mushabe, talk to us about the kind of army. Can you describe it for us? UPDF today.
Well, I think if I can try to compare the past armies and the army we have today, I think one has to admit that, yes, even though, like, say, during the Obote's regime and Amin regime, there people had been trained in Sandhursts, in very prestigious military colleges, but I think they were simply then used as man-killing machines. These days, I agree with my brother there that when the NRA took power, it was just a guerrilla force. But they have tremendously gone through transformation through professional training. However, before I get the however, they have gone through tremendous professional training, which actually we might also have to admit that this is one of the most friendly armies Uganda has ever had towards civilians. Now I got the however. It is heavily influenced by the ruling party, by the government.
Rather than the DP, for instance?
Opposition party. There's a dilemma. And also a chairman. And therefore, when they are being discriminated, they are the party and so sized army, yet a very disciplined army. So that is it is a catch-22. To the I think
let's look at its evolution. It came out of the bush, a small force, maybe 20,000, maybe 15,000.
Yeah.
It swelled as it fought rebel wars in the north. Then there was a demobilization exercise started in 1990 to strike it down, bring it down to 40,000 from 80,000. Then it swelled again after that. What through those processes? Take us through those.
I am not, and I have never even undergone mchaka, so I'm not an expert in that area. But from where I stand, what I have been observing, I see an army which, yes, there was downsizing, but I think all of a sudden I think it was a strategic move. Downsize, shake off those you think are a liability, or they are not healthy, or they are too old, then recruit massively the young and educated, and I think the country has found itself where it was at the time of downsizing, or even we have a bigger army than it was then. I think this might have been a strategic move by those who are qualified to make such military strategic decisions.
All right, we'll talk later a little bit about people like Mhozika and Rugaba. Some people think he rose a bit too fast.
Yes.
In them, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, we know that then has put pressure on the government, saying you have a very big army, you can't support it, and they downsized it. But talk to us broadly about your own views of the EPDF.
The statistics I have, Uganda has an estimated number of about 50,000 professional soldiers in the UPDF forces, and like you are asking my colleagues, they have a history of the war. Of course, they went to the bush as politicians who had the issues on table of governance, and then transformed into a fighting force. But suffice to say that after 86, our army was faced with many other groupings. Not only the NRA, as you all know, there were other forces that were fighting to take leadership in Uganda, and they were led by various people, as you all know. But there have been every effort to merge so that we can have one army. And if you remember, there have been a lot of negotiations from the different army lords, the warlords in Uganda, to ensure that they are demobilized, there is disarmament, and that the leadership of those army accept to join the NRA, which finally became the UPDF, and we have now a one national army. I want to say, without any doubt of contradiction, that we have an army in Uganda that is professional, and it has two lenses. When we here at home in Uganda, there's the lens of their political ideology and undertones, which for me I appreciate because of the history of our country. Our history has a lot of military lens and outlook. But outside Uganda, because our army has been out of Uganda, it has done us proud. Uganda has been able to participate and pacify Somalia in a very big way. That one we have to give it to our country and to our UPDF. But then I speak because I'm doing work with Amson. I go to Mogadishu, I'm a consultant there, and it's on the streets. You'll be told everywhere, if you just say you're Uganda, they tell you, oh my goodness, they acknowledge that we've done a good job as a country, and this we give it to the UPDF. And therefore, outside Uganda, they've done it. That's in Somalia. I've also had a personal experience in East Africa that we have a joint and a common foreign policy for East Africa, which is building. It's in infancy, but when we have joint exercises like training, like sports, our army is doing well. They are more alert. They are ideologically focused in their military, whatever, and they perform very well. So to that extent, outside Uganda, we have an army that we should be proud of and that we should be very supportive. And then, of course, as you all know, it's because of that confidence building in the region that Uganda currently is mediating in the struggles of the DRC government vis-a-vis the M23 and the other groupings to ensure that there is peace and stability under the international conflict of the Great Lakes. So it turns that even that, it's because we have this history of saying that we have had a war, we have had our own struggles, and that our neighbors want to learn from us. And the region, even the Great Lakes now, have built mechanisms, even under the AU, to ensure that we are our neighbors, so to speak. We are our neighbors, quote unquote, keeper. So you will not see people, countries now saying, don't come into our affairs, we are fighting. You know, like what's happening in the DRC, in Rwanda, in Burundi. You find that Uganda has been positioned to ensure that the history we suffered of fighting and having groupings, warlords and people fighting, does not happen to our neighbors. They are custodians of our history of struggle, of fights in our neighbors. And I'm proud to say that we are seeing a generation or a time coming into the Great Lakes in East Africa and beyond of resolving armed conflict amicably and find people that are good at their job to mediate. And that's how far I can see the army in Uganda, UPDF, and the military doing a good job outside East Africa. Me who works outside Uganda, I'm able to pick this and bring it home. Now, on the local front, I know that this army has like threefold lenses. I talked about the different groupings that came together to be one army. One was led by Moses Ali, the others that were led by the other groupings. Some have since left or passed on and retired, but we ended up with one army. But at home, it has like two lenses. We have the historicals, the political historicals who are still wearing the army fatigue. They are in parliament. They have one leg in politics and one leg in the military. That's what maybe keeps disturbing the debate that we keep hearing. But by and large, for me that works outside Uganda, I really see that we've done. We have an institution that is giving us, making us proud, and that is sharing an experience of where we have come from as a country, and say, look, don't go that route. This is how we can solve the problem. We've been there. Don't take that route as an army and as armed people. But back at home, we have people that we have an army that is in parliament represented. The justifications are there. They can be reviewed every 10 years. It's a constitutional right. But also to say that my biggest interest is to ensure that we have an army that has the face of Uganda, right. And that effort is there, because every time there's recruitment, it is through a quota system. Right. And to me, that's where I want us to go, is that whenever there is recruitment in the army, it has the face of Uganda, and there's a quota system in every corner of Uganda to ensure that when you're talking about the UPDF, it's a national army, and it reflects our aspirations and outgrowing our internal history that was weak and growing stronger and stronger. And that with the exposure that we have, then we will be having a better army in the future when all these old difficulties have been shed off, which is the way to go.
We'll talk a little bit more about the national representation and other things. So Vincent Mayanja, let's talk a little bit about 1986. When the NRA took over, it was called the National Resistance Army at that time. There were several other fighting groups groups. Mr. Kaira had the Uganda Freedom Movement, Federal Movement. We had Fedemo of Mr. Nkwanga. We had Moses Ali with his Uganda National Rescue Front. Talk to us about the kind of dynamics that we had at that time. What happened? The NRA was simply the dominant force, and there had just been a coup, so there were friendly forces within the National Army at that time. Talk to us about those dynamics and how they were resolved.
Well, if you want to go back there, of course, we had a very peculiar situation by that time, that you have so many people from different backgrounds having different ideologies coming together to formulate a national force. Of course, it was a challenge, I can imagine. But I want to really, they need, at the end of the day, by 1996 December, we had one army, which is the NRA.
Well, let's talk about, it's a unique situation. We had different disparate groups fighting to topple the UNLA, the Uganda National Liberation Army of Milton Obote at that time, and then later Tito Okello Lutwa, after he'd been overthrown by his own army. He had all these different groups. How did the NRA and President Museveni take charge of those?
Of course, he was the victor, and he had the good way, I presume. So everybody really came and submitted to his authority. You saw, I had some friends in FEDEM, I had some friends in UFM. They said, no, I think this is the way to go. Ugandans think that we need a change, we need to forge a united front to really liberate this country, and I think everybody joined. After joining, I don't know what happened.
Let's talk about the realities of the, I mean, some of who were born after 1980, they will not understand some of these dynamics. There were groups that controlled different places. I was in Amiriamo College. FEDEM was in charge, that they used to wear green, military boards. UFM was in charge of other places. These were technically warlords, like Hon Lydia just said.
Well, I think there you are going back to pre-1996 January.
Yes.
And you are talking about when UFM was controlling that is southern Kampala, that is the Gaba area, and it used, that's how it won that name called Aflandan, because it was peaceful at least. Then UNLA was in the center, FEDEMO was in the Mukono side, the
NRA was in Luwe.
The NRA was had cut off the road to Masaka, and FEDEMO was somewhere in Chagwe. So you could see how the situation
had kind of been puzzled.
Of course, the city was under different forces, controlling different areas, and as I said, it was a challenge. And I don't know how the people who were in charge by that time were going about it. But as a matter of fact, after 1996, we had one army. Rather, 86, we had one army, and we need really to look.
These were absorbed. Let's look at it. These were absorbed into the National Resistance Army, which later was renamed the EPDF after the Constitution.
Yes. But I wanted to make one point, please, on that issue. In fact, what puzzles me, and you talked about numbers, that we have about 40,000,
50,000
or 50,000. But I remember I covered that story in 1992 of demobilization. We had about 100,000 soldiers, and they say that we have cut it to half. But since then, since 1991, and by that time, people like Brigadier Muhozi, is he Brigadier? His ranks change every time. By that time, he was in school. When he got out of school, he started recruiting, and he has recruited a lot. And when you look at the UPDF today, it has so many young people under the ranks, and I'm wondering, who are the others? Because we remained with about 50,000, but we have recruited since then. So what's the real number of the UPDF? Maybe this is a very serious question we need to ask ourselves. Maybe it is a security secret that you don't have to expose the strength of our army. But I think this is major. Did we really demobilize?
Dr. Mushabe, talk to us. Did we demobilize? And talk to us about Muhozi Kainerugaba, a very hardworking young man.
First, let me revisit a few issues. How did the NRM or NRA come to dominate all the other fighting groups and become the dominant force? One, NRM had a superior ideology, a superior political ideology. Why? I want happened to be in this town and this country at that time, and I talked to many of my friends in different fighting groups, but the NRA soldiers seem to have come reciting a certain
mantra
or something that was catchy, that was attractive to the masses. Second, that itself seemed to keep them together as a force with a single common goal. Whereas the other groups seem to be fighting, want to body out of here, but then what? There seem to be then what after body. Secondly, NRM was more diversified. Yes, of course, there's certain groups were bigger, seemed to be more represented than others, but it was more diversified, as opposed to the other groups, which represented only certain tribes or regional ethnic groups only. So with that, Ugandans were hungry to see change, and they were not about to go back to tribalized politics. Okay, I think that was their winning age at that time. Whether what followed is still the same, then that is subject to debate. But the diversification, especially when we talk about the quota system, I think it is rooted from their political ideology. Now, I have
talk about Muhoozi Kainerugaba.
Yes,
Some people think he's risen very fast. We don't know whether that is true.
Well, as I have
some context.
I have made a confession at the beginning of this program that I never even did Chakam Chaka. So I really don't understand how the army does, but how the army does its things. But what I know and what is a fact around even among the soldiers, UPDF, they say the man has taken almost every course, has attended almost every course. And even when you examine the Western armies in Europe and America, when you finish a certain course, they give you a certain rank. You see, you finish a certain course, then a certain rank. Now the question is not whether or not Moses is trained. He has all the training. He has attended all the training. However, the other people might say, but we also wanted to attend the same courses. We have not been given opportunity. I don't know the criteria which they followed or which they follow to choose people to go for certain courses. But for me, I think the man has been trained, and whether the training was done justifiably or whatever, that is out of my jurisdiction. But when you talk about his recruitment of soldiers when he was still in school, I think this was not done by only Muhoozi himself. I think many people are convincing people from their villages, home area, come and join NRA. When I was at Rubiri Secondary School, these guys were in Nwero. There are certain fellows, I think, they have died. But they used to send me inside Rubiri barracks and making the barracks.
Military barracks at that time.
Yes.
The palace of the time.
To recruit people for them. I would call people for them. I would go meet at Chibuye market. And they would take them to the bush. I never went to the bush.
A rebel collaborator at that time.
I was a collaborator at that time. So I think this was the same modus operandi. Like, can you go get us people? And I think for him it was no time for him to join. I think when he was ready, he joined. So as to recruitment, there I can justify drawing from my experience. But whether he was picked, whether the criteria was okay or the standard they followed to go and get training, that is out of my jurisdiction.
Honorable Lydia, has he been treated unfairly? Been treated preferentially?
I went, those complaints will always be there. I went to a school where teachers had children.
At school.
And those who kept complaining about the teachers' children going to the staff room and having better break tea, and the teachers' children sitting in front and getting better marks, they know where they are today. I think so it's nice to look at the principles. Moses is just one Ugandan. If people are very serious about how much space he has taken at the cost of other Ugandans, there are mechanisms they can raise, and the problem is addressed. If it's an issue of training, like Dr. Mushabe is saying, let the courses be opened up for others too, so that Parliament can push through a budget arrangement for training, so that others get trained. Because for me, I don't want to come here and people say, oh yes, it is true, so what? What is it that has been left whose space has it taken up,
Alright.
and where are the issues, so that they are addressed. Because I have just given you my own experience that normally children of people that are in positions, by omission or commission, are advantaged. And I've given my own raw experience of school. A child of a headmaster, a child of a teacher, we were never the same. But those who kept lamenting all the way,
You stay at the back.
but those of us who said, okay, if it is a test, can I do the test? If it is an exam, can I do the same exam? And we are now here. I don't have to keep
To mourn about and lament.
So let's look at opportunities and avail them to other that want them, other than look at one this Ugandan that is going to make us blind all the other opportunities, because he's just one person.
This is Spectrum. We're going for a break. We'll be back. Just stay tuned.
The Call of the Wild this Valentine's with Reds. Buy Reds and win a getaway for 2 to the Wild Waters Lodge, plus other amazing prizes. See present posters for details or visit your favorite bar or supermarket. Happy Valentine's Day from
Reds. Crisp, clean apple taste. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Communications Commission invites entries for the 3rd ASIA Awards, scheduled for June the 7th, 2013. Visit www.ucc.co.ug/awards for information on the categories and criteria. Deadline for entries is April the 30th, 2013. ASIA, ICT Innovation for National Development.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight we review the week, predominantly dominated by the Tarehe Sita celebrations. 32 years since the UPDF, at that time it was called the National Resistance Army, took power in 1986, January the 26th. Tarehe Sita is celebrated because that's the day the first shot was fired at the military barracks in Kabamba by any two-minute general, now signaling the start of the Bush War. There had been an election December 10th, 1980. President Museveni had lost, and with his UPM, won by Milton Obote. Many people complained it had been rigged. DP was supposed to win with its president at that time, Dr. Paul Kawanga Semongere. NRA took over power. President Museveni was sworn in. Dr. Paul Semongere was co-opted as a minister in that government. It was called a broad-based government. Our guest tonight, Hon Lydia Wanyoto, two-time Ugandan representative of the East African Parliament, Dr. David Mushabe from the Mushabe Munungu and Company Advocates, Mr. Vincent Mayanja, Deputy Secretary General of the Democratic Party, also a veteran journalist. Dr. Mushabe, let's stay with the army. What more distance does the army have to travel to be fully professionalized?
That is $1 million question for a civilian. But I would like to see an army that is neutral, which is not influenced by the sitting government or the political party in power. That's what I'd like to see. And probably I would like us to separate the executive from the legislature and the judiciary. We separate all the arms of government. Now, where you see the military in parliament, I think the justification was that, look, if you leave the military out of parliament, they will be discontented with whatever decisions are being made there. They will feel left out. But at the same time, if one of them rises and says something that is anti-government or that is critical of government, he is castigated by his constituency. So you have members of parliament that are representing the army that have to toe the party line or keep quiet. Now, that is one indication that they are highly politicized. So I would like to see them out of parliament, become a neutral force, and while we are at that, I would like to see the ministers also lose constituencies. They become strictly an executive branch. But you can't have somebody legislating an issue that is going to affect the executive of which he's a member.
Do you expect to have a neutral force with people in the army who are very highly educated?
I don't expect a neutral force maybe as long as this government is still in power, that is the S card.
Well, forget about the history of it. Even even if you had a new government, these are ideologically oriented people. They are people who went to school. They have their own minds.
Yes. But yes, they have their own minds. But you see in their training, they say when the commander makes an order, implement the order, you shall ask, or is it what badai? You shall ask afterwards. But you first follow the order and implement whatever. Yes, yes. I couldn't speak Swahili. The Honorable understands it better.
But you have to pay me some dollars. Don't just go interpreting.
So really, regardless of their high level of education, and really we have a highly educated army, regardless of that, they have that army code of conduct. You don't question your superior, and when he sends you to do this, you do it. And that's why. And some years ago, I think somebody made a statement, said, you look, even if we have MPs in parliament who sleep, but they wake up and vote the right way, those are the ones I want. Now, it strikes me that probably these distinguished soldiers in parliament are doing the same. They just keep quiet.
They're listening post.
They are listening post. They just vote whenever they are needed to vote. But true, if they give them opportunity to speak up, and I think that is one of the things that caused the Brigadier Tumukunde problems. He wanted to be an independent man. They said, no, you are not an MP like other MPs. For you, you are still under the control of the rules and rubrics that control the army. And that was an example. I think the prosecution of that gentleman was to send a message to the others, look, stay online, fata nyayo. So I think for a long time, we may not have a neutral army, but an army which is influenced by a party that is in power.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, address this question. Some people think it's regionally imbalanced.
No, the Ugandan case, like I said earlier, we have a history of course, an army that has a very high lens of political undertones. But as you all know, the constitution of Uganda is very clear. The 1995 constitution, this is a transitional arrangement. There is review of these interest groups every 10 years. So if Ugandans feel very strongly that we've become of age to get to discuss the issue of parliament without UPDF representation, it's not a far-fetched debate. It is within our constitutional provisions. So for me, I don't want to debate this like it can never happen, because it is provided for in our constitution. If people strongly feel that we've come of age to get the UPDF out of their constitution, that debate can come.
But I have an issue with the review of representation of interest groups.
Yes.
I think they are not going to be downsized or scrapped off. I think they are going to be increasing. Every time there is a review, they are going to be increasing. Look at the rate at which you are making constituencies based on tribes, districts. Each tribe, when a tribe makes noise, look, we want a district, otherwise we've been voting for you. If you don't give us, we shall not vote the party. Then we have tribal districts.
We need some clan districts.
But about the issue of politicizing the army, I think what we should do, first of all,
let's talk about the regionalization. Is it very representative? Do we have enough?
That's going to be a long debate, because I don't agree that it's a national army, first of all, because the way they do their work doesn't reflect that. But
explain that.
No. When you see the recruitment, the promotions, and all that, who heads which department in the army, does not reflect that national character. And I think that needs to be handled.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about politicizing the army. I think that we should not, as a country, lock out the army from politics. An army man from politics.
Yes.
But if they want to join politics, they should resign from the army. They should they should remove their military uniforms. They should be demobilized and really give up the army. Then come and join politics. If they have
the army in politics,
they come and stand with other people.
They will be civilians then.
Yeah, they will be civilians. police.
So you don't agree with having the army in politics?
No, I don't. I don't, because it doesn't make sense. Because the police will also come up and say, we also need to be represented in parliament.
Even prison guards.
Even prisons, even guards, even all of those guys. So the way out is that when we are doing the review, let's allow these people that the army, we change the law governing those soldiers, because even when I was reading what the president was talking, was replying to Kano Besige, he said that he has failed to demobilize some people, to allow them to go, to retire them because of resources. But I would say that if a soldier wants to go to parliament, for example, they should be allowed to retire, and then they become civilians. That is going to help the image of the army.
Let's talk about this. Talk about the coup.
Well.
For me, it's a stage of a military coup. If they want,
because they are the strongest arm of coercion.
Let's talk about it ideologically. Look at the structure.
They can, because they have. We have already debated that they are highly politicized. So if a political viewpoint thinks that things require a coup, they can really mobilize them on political lines, and they stage a coup.
And they saw the army commander or what?
I was reading somebody who just wrote a satire on the media, on the social media, and he said that the proclamation that there will be this, that now because we can't do this, the status quo is going to go back, and the person who was the chairman of the Army Council, the High Command, by 1996 will read the military council, something like that. So it was a satire, sort of. But that can happen. But I know that this talk was not made for Uganda. I know.
Who was it made for?
It was a message made for other people. Who? Because to me, I think that the president, Uganda was being isolated somehow. It was being accused of doing funny things in the DRC. It was being accused on a number of things. The president, the government threatens that we are going to get out of Somalia. Nobody answers, and he doesn't get out. So to say that, when you see that the international community is getting out, try to tell them that I'm still around and I'm a major player in the region. Right. So you say that now you are going to be a coup in Uganda. So then the international community will say, but this is the person who is helping us to really pacify this region. We cannot afford to have another very hot spot in the region which is very volatile. And this was really meant for those guys. It was not meant for Uganda. Even those who started it know it, but it was not meant for here. And the coup talk was really nothing.
I've not heard that argument before. Sounds very, very interesting. David Mushabe, talk to us about that. Can this army actually stage a coup? And where is this coup talk coming from?
Well, what I know is that they have the capacity to stage a coup. But I don't know whether they would dare stage a coup. Because Uganda has been transformed politically. Much as only the guns are in the hands of only a few people, maybe the 50,000 that Honorable has told us, the power belongs to the people. And one of the senior generals wrote an article in the papers recently. He said, look, this coup thing can be, can take place. People can make a coup. But if the people don't cooperate, they can make the coup makers' life a living hell. I think they have the capacity to make a coup, but I don't think the coup, if the coup was to be made, I don't think it would host the president or the current executive. I think it would be directed to the parliament. I think they would say, they would announce the parliament is here by dissolved because of ABCD, FG. They cite some legal rationale points, about several points. Because of this, the constitution has been breached, so the parliament is suspended, temporarily dissolved. And now you have
ruled by decree.
You have a blank check by the military, but who would be the head of the military? So I don't think the executive would be disturbed at all. It is the legislature which would be in trouble, and therefore these problems, so and so stole this, so and so stole this, they wouldn't come, because it is the parliament which is ruffling the feathers of the executive. When we are talking about the civil service, all these big names in the civil service who have stolen, and the big politicians, we're talking about, even the big politicians, we're not talking about MPs who are not ministers. We're talking about ministers and civil servants. Now the parliament is saying, no, we must look into that, we must look into that. And this has made a lot of members of the executive very uncomfortable. If there has to be any coup, it would be against parliament, but nothing would change with the executive.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, is that a scenario you would agree?
First of all, this coup talk has been responded to by the executive, and when it first came up, I had a few questions I even discussed on this very talk show. I said, first of all, in whose interest would the coup be, and who stages a coup? Can you go to a press conference and announce that we are now going to have a coup? Then I just said this even maybe for, I hope I'm not being too repetitive, but I said that there's been heavy investment in our country in terms of the Uganda's image, but also in our own history in the military. The work we've done outside Uganda in terms of building peace and confidence, that Uganda is positioned to be a peace hub in the region. I've just said that. Then how can you now begin talking about the coup talk? So for me, the coup talk was actually misplaced. I had questions over it because of how can you invest so much in a country's image, positioning it. Then again, actually, it is, I don't know what my colleagues here picked from their own networks, but I was bombarded with a lot of messages, both on my mail and my other system. People are asking me now, mumerudi kwa hiyo siasa mbovu. People can't understand that. Why are you going back to that? Why? And I didn't have answers. But since the executive has come out to say, oh, you know,
they were misquoted.
They were misquoted. I would like to take it that way, and because you know, for us that don't always work here in Uganda all the time, it's very tough to go to Nairobi. You are there busy that you're working with the elections, and then they ask you, why are you coming to observe an electoral process when you're back at home? So it answered a lot of questions. But now that actually the first time I had the spokesperson of the IPDF, Kanokulaiji, explaining the misinformation,
he called in here and denied it. He called into this program,
and also the president also came up and said that was misinformation. I think we should take it at that, and then we should always promote goodwill in Uganda and be positive about things. Our country should never, we should actually have a never phrase. We should never ever imagine that we can go back to the past where we had take over our disagreement using the guns, but also there are mechanisms now in the region, like I said, that will not allow us. You can say that I'm sure those big officers have been asked by their neighbors, what is this what they are saying? If me, a small person can be asked by neighbors outside that I work with, what about those? Because we have a lot of joint work we are doing. Not only Uganda is no longer a country on its own, it's not, and nobody is going to allow us, because there's the new ideology of your neighbor's keeper. So really, me, I'm
totally misplaced. 30 years old back, Texas.
We will not be allowed to go back to that.
Vincent, is the army really in charge in Uganda, or do we have civilian rule? Before we talk about something else.
Well, for me, I still believe that we are under quash military regime, because President Museveni does not really forget to remind us that he's a general. In 1996, when I witnessed President Museveni going to launch his manifesto at the International Conference Center,
1996.
That's 1996. He said, "You have helped me. I want you guys to help me.
Remove the uniform.
I want to remove this uniform and throw it away."
And dressed in a council.
In fact, he came dressed in a council.
I was there, remember?
But he has failed to live to what really he wanted, because he said, "This is what I want, and I want you people to give it to me." He was given his desire, but he has failed since then to abandon it. He is always, when he wants to make any statement to the nation, he puts on that army uniform. So it does not really get away that, that orientation that we are still under a military regime. And I think he needs to help this country by desisting from really posing as an army general, but as a civilian president. But about your question as to whether the military is in charge, I believe that the military is in charge. I know that what the military needs will be what is done in this country.
Do they will that stick if they have a stake?
Of course, if they want anything. That's why you see that on all controversial issues, they first go to the Army High Command. And they decide on that, then come back and make it political.
Like what? Return of the kingdom?
Return of the kingdoms. Even those things that have been happening recently, when walk to work had gone to its height, I heard that the military sat and said, now this must be done. So the decisions, the political decisions that are made in Uganda emanate from the military.
Let's talk about something else. Dr. David Mushabe, a new report was launched this week, backed by the Chatham House, respected think tank based in London. They say Uganda's situation is not that bad. We're not headed for a curse necessarily. Is that something you have to agree with?
No, I disagree with him. First of all, when I was studying public policy at the University of Southern California, one of my very respected professor told me that whenever a study is conducted, ask what is the background and the philosophy of those who have produced that study. What is the interest of Chatham House? Is it a disinterested party, or it is interested in one or another? Now, these oil companies, the oil multinationals, there's a name that is African. All of them are from Europe, they are from America, they are from the West. Now, when
China is a British company.
Yes. Now,
there's a Chinese company, there's a French company.
Exactly. Now, these guys, this is blindfolding. It is a red herring. I think they want us to be too comfortable, and then they'll do what? They'll go ahead with exploitation. Tell me where in Africa where they have
exploration.
Exploitation. I think I don't trust the Chatham House's study. And you cannot promote transparency. You see, they are saying they're discouraging too much political debate on all and favoring actions that are based on transparency and accountability. What is the role of the parliament? Is to make sure there's transparency and accountability by the executive, by these guys who are going to manage our oil. Now, this is a contradiction in a way. So we're supposed to make sure that there's transparency and accountability. If the parliament is not going to debate these issues and put our executive, put our oil executives in check. So I think they are hoodwinking us. Somewhere there is a grand plan by these multinationals, again, to neo-colonize Africa economically.
Vincent,
I read a book, I don't remember the author exactly, but the title is very eye-catching. It is called, I think, An Economic Assassin. Did you read it?
Go on. No, I haven't read that book.
I want to believe that whoever produced this report is part of that group.
Yeah.
That are sent to the third world.
It's a red herring.
To start up a new debate and divert people from what exactly is taking place on the ground. You cannot tell me that, they have already started saying Uganda has good cadres of technocratic and civil servants,
which the cadres
every managed oil resource. What are they talking about? We are not saying that we do not have them. We are saying that this found resource should be managed transparently and with accountability. That's all. And you can't find that, you can't find the actions they are talking about unless you engage in political debate. Because politics is where policy starts. So these guys are really off the mark. and I don't want even to discuss what they are saying. They
have an agenda.
They have an agenda, these guys.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, do you agree with them, or are they spot on?
I think at the oil sector in Uganda we have progressed well so far, because we had a debate, a very heated debate in Parliament on the question of how the oil sector was being managed. But so far everything is on course, because we had 3 bills lined up. The first bill on exploration was done, and the policy bill that lays the foundation is already done. It's, I think, waiting, which has already been assigned, I don't know, but at least it left Parliament. Now it's now in the hands of the President. But we have 2 more bills coming related to the marketing, and there were other issues on oil. And on time, I don't know what informs the study about good cadre of technocrats. Yes, we have a few Ugandans who have been tailored to training in the past, but what's happening now is Parliament and the legislature, they are laying out, we want a clear policy on capacity building. Like I said earlier, on the I would like to push for a quota system. In the sector, so that
how would it operate?
You get Ugandans. I see some adverts of scholarships by some of these companies in partnership with the Ministry of Energy to train more Ugandans to be skilled in the various fields, economists for oil, engineering, technicians. But we have to budget for it as a country also, and train and be able to have what I talked about, opportunities. It's like what I said earlier. Let there be opportunities for all Ugandans across. There's a national picture. It is a national picture about who has opportunities in the oil sector. So I think it is too early for us to say that there is a good array of cadres and whatever, because the sector is still very young. Those who are there are very few. Actually, they are under 100, because we've been seeing our experts are very few. They are about 60. We have just one institute which is new in Kigumba, but it is
low cadre.
Yeah, but those are the most important. Technicians are very, very important. Actually, we have ignored the very important sector in Uganda. Those technicians are very, very important. We need them, and it gives a wide opportunity for many people to go and work in those different sectors of technicians on an array of fields. But what I wanted to emphasize is that we just have this one institution. The process is on, it is good, but we should not now start praising it before it has taken root. And I think that I would like to see the Makerere universities of Uganda
undertake their own studies.
We have over 30 universities in Uganda today, both public and private. Let our own universities pick interest in the oil sector, begin training Ugandans. Actually, I would have loved to do a course on oil and law, but I don't know how here at home, not to travel abroad. Why don't we begin learning pop? We would rather have experts coming to train Ugandans from here in our university than us flying out to go and look for professional, to go for evening programs and learn about the sector. But so what I have to say is that I would like to hear that Makerere University or Makerere that they've done this research, and because it's our thing, and we can only partner. We can only partner with these brain shepherds, but let them not come and take the lead and begin telling us what we are when we are also.
Well, you've gone I agree as well. Very briefly, some people think I've said this report could be a suspect. We're still waiting for a raft of legislation. We've not yet seen another round of licensing. Foreign companies coming to buy oil blocks, and then this report comes through.
Well, this is all public relations. The other day I was seeing people on some companies on TV saying that they have started a program of training people, this and the other. But I wanted to say that we have information at the headquarters, at the party headquarters, yes, that people have been trained outside the country.
Yes.
In Texas, there is a whole college that is training dozens of Ugandans, and you don't about oil. You don't know how they were taken there. You don't know how those scholarships were given. You don't know how they recruit.
You're
using your MTN number. If you don't register by the 28th of February 2013, they're going to cut it off with Papa, and you'll be there. Contactless, numberless, identityless. Basically, you'll be finished. Do you know what it means when you lose the number you have had for years? The number everyone knows. Katifai were you. I would go and register now. The time is up. Go and register now. I said register before the 28th of February 2013.